Welcome to People in Perspective. I'm Lisandro Resto, and my guest for this edition is Janan Cain. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, could you start off by telling us what are the books you've made?
I have written and illustrated 3 children's books. The first book is The Way I Feel, The Way I Act, which is a follow-up, a companion book to The Way I Feel, and Rooney B. Mooney, Lost and Alone.
Now, could you give us a brief description on each of these books?
Yes, The Way I Feel is a children's picture book that I wrote and illustrated, teaching children about their emotions, giving them words for their emotions. The Way I Act gives children words for their actions, responsibility, compassion. And Lost and Alone, Rooney B. Mooney, is a book that teaches children about safety and using their instincts, trusting their instincts when they're lost and needing to find a safe stranger to help them.
Now I'd like to go into your background.
Okay.
Could you tell us, how did you become an illustrator?
I always loved to draw since the time I was a little girl. My dad used to take me into his office where he had a point of purchase display company, and he had a studio for his artists there, and I used to love to go in and draw with all the markers, the professional artist tools on the big pads of paper. I've always been interested in drawing since I can remember.
So would you say that he was the one that supported you the most?
He supported me. My parents definitely did. I took a lot of art classes, especially when I got into high school. My high school art teacher suggested a program for me at the Colorado Institute of Art to get a degree in visual communications. I went out there and saw the school, and I was very happy with it and decided that was the path I would pursue.
All right, so you've written some of these books personally.
Right.
But could you tell us, do you prefer illustrating to writing?
Absolutely. I do not consider myself a writer, although I have authored 2 out of the 3 books. I did not write The Way I Act. That was written by another author, Steve Metzger, through Parenting Press. I absolutely am an illustrator, and this is just simple verse from The Way I Feel, so I consider myself an illustrator, definitely.
And the Rooney B. Mooney one was a bit more lengthy. How did you get the story?
Well, the story of Rooney B. Mooney came up because I really felt that it was important not to teach children not to talk to strangers, but how to find a safe stranger. That is how that book came up. I really had a lot of inspiration also from my garden, and I wanted to do something to do with that, so I made the character a bee, so I could put in a lot of interesting graphics and illustrations from my garden.
Now you had some illustrations you wanted to show us.
From Rooney? Or?
From The Way I Feel.
Okay, sure. The Way I Feel. Once again, I could not find a book to help my daughters learn about their emotions, the reason I wrote the book. And I decided, since I was an illustrator, I had the opportunity to create my own book. I could find many word books about teaching children about household objects and animals and colors, but nothing to help them name their emotions, which is why I created this. So more than a story, each page is a different emotion, and I'll give you some examples. For Scared, I wanted not only the facial expression to be what the child could recognize, but the colors, the objects in the background, and the typography as well. I wanted the entire page to look like an emotion, not just from hearing the verse or seeing the facial expression.
And definitely the situation too.
The situation, absolutely. So as you can see here, I have a child who's afraid of a thunderstorm, and I even illustrated the word scared to look like it's shaking. For Sad, I have a child sitting in a tree. I wanted the tree to look like it was crying as well, so I made the leaves look like teardrops. Basically, I want the child to be able to look at the entire page and get a sense of the emotion, the feeling. Angry, once again, all red, pointy, triangular shapes, the situation, the facial expression, the colors, the typography, all depict the emotion. And this book has actually become very instrumental with autistic children who cannot identify facial expressions or have difficulty reading facial expressions. The book has really hit home for them and helped them to really understand how they're feeling and express that.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Now, when you first came out with this book, you received a lot of awards. Were you surprised at all by that?
I was surprised because in the beginning when I created the book, I really did it to help my daughters so that I can teach my daughters. When I decided to try to get it published, I was, told, oh, you're going to have over 500 rejections. Just keep sending it out to different publishers and try to get it published. So even getting it published was a big surprise for me and a happy surprise. So the awards have been, yes, that has been really rewarding. The most rewarding thing is the letters I receive from kids and from parents, especially from autistic parents of autistic children who tell me that their children are now able to talk about how they're feeling and identify their emotions where they couldn't before. That's really rewarding.
Now, you mentioned difficulty in getting a publisher. For someone who's an illustrator and is struggling with finding a publisher, what advice could you give them?
Well, I did talk to an illustrator after I had created this book to find out how I should go about the process of finding a publisher. And I was told to buy a book called The Writer's Guide to Children's Book Illustrators. And I went through that book. It talks about every publisher, and you basically have to read about each publisher and find out which publishers are interested in the topics that you're looking to pursue. And I just made color copies of my book in groups of 10. I was sending it out, and that's exactly how I found Parenting Press. They were lucky number 13, but you have to be very persistent to find a publisher because you can have many, many rejections before you actually find one, and it's just a matter of sticking with it and being persistent, and eventually it will happen.
All right, I'd like to wrap this up by asking, what are you working on currently?
Well, currently I have some prints available from The Way I Feel for classrooms and children's bedrooms and hospitals, waiting rooms, things like that. So I'm currently in the process of marketing those prints, and I am also in discussing with Parenting Press about doing a follow-up book to The Way I Feel, adding more emotions, because there are several emotions that we still need to explore, and we couldn't put them all in a 32-page children's book. So we still have some more emotions to work on. So I think that's going to be our next project. So
for this book, for anyone who's interested, where could you find this?
You can get the book online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. My publisher, Parenting Press, also has books available. And I have a website where my prints are available, which is janancain.com.
All right, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
This has been People in Perspective. I'm Lisandro Resto. Thanks for watching.